So, Bryson, I think we all know that the reason we're doing this is so that you can basically just connect with all the people in the industry that you love and just love talking to anyway, and just be like, hey, come in for the podcast now. Yep. but ideally, like, who exactly would you like to meet and actually like engage with and learn from?
Yeah, I don't have a specific kind of dream guest to have on. And I think, to your point, this is where it all started, was being in the industry for so long, 20 plus years, just meeting tons of amazing people. A lot of them have become friends, and having this moment of like, wow, we can really pick up the phone and get to an immense amount of industry leaders and really amazing people in the space.
Yeah.
So let's leverage that, and let's have good conversations with those people and those friends that we know that can come in. And like you said, we have these conversations anyways over beers, happy hours, events that we go to. We have such great insight into a lot of the stuff that's happening. So let's put that on video and see if it can help anybody.
Yeah. So in terms of format, though, and I know we're still figuring it out. We've been talking back and forth, like, how structured do you want this to be? Like, are we going full Joe Rogan, or are we going like more just more very scripted, kind of like stodgy corporate? Yeah. I feel like there's a happy middle there, but how do you feel about it?
Yeah, again, I think it's going back to, we're jumping in, we're going to play with it, we're going to see what feels right. I think it's going to be your standard Q&A format overall. But you had brought up some good points early on of, hey, let's potentially do some series on some really interesting subjects, whether it's a mega project, mega issues that the city's dealing with, have very specific series related to that. Love that concept. And then I love just the general Q&A concept with really amazing leaders in the industry, architects, engineers, GC CEOs. One thing that I want to play around with, and I think I mentioned this early on, was, I love that podcast, The Hot Ones, and it's one of the most successful podcasts of all times. And if you don't know it, the general idea is they bring in guests and they make them eat increasingly hot chicken wings until they basically can't even function anymore. They're like bleeding out of their eyes. But the reason it's brilliant, what I find, is that it's the distraction created by doing something different during the discussion.
Yeah.
So what you get is people that they can't be worried about their responses the entire time, or have these calculated responses, as opposed to being more authentic in the moment because they're distracted by something else happening. So I said, how could we do something interesting like that? And one idea I had was, let's throw a ton of Legos on the table. And during the interview, let's have these people build something. And again, we're talking about architects, engineers, contractors. So it makes a lot of sense to see what they would come up with. One, it would probably just be hilarious to see what they built. But I like the idea of creating that distraction so we get more authentic responses from the people that we're interviewing. So we're going to try that. Could be a total bust. Maybe have a couple of our friends come in, give that a shot, see if it goes anywhere. And then also, we could have, a wall of fame for the Legos built. Maybe we'll do an annual award for the best Lego sculpture. So again, the long story short, we're just going to play around with it and see where it goes.
Yeah. I was doing some research, or by research I mean listening to podcasts. And what I was noticing is there is that fine line between authenticity and also just having a really like nourishing dialogue. And what I was noticing in the podcasts that I was listening to were that the podcasts that have a lot of people just like jumping in, like kind of a lot of crosstalk, like a lot of people just kind of like going at it, just kind of talking over each other at times. Terrible. Really hard to listen to. But having some kind of like, respect for that conversation, like, it's your turn, it's my turn, that kind of thing, I realize is actually like soothing when you're listening to it on the drive or something like that.
Just general quality communication tactics overall, right? Okay. All right, let's segue a little bit into kind of the point of this episode, which is meet the host. And again, this is a deep philosophical question overall, but I kind of want to know, who is Chris James at the end of the day? Where do you call home, family, friends, things like that. What should we know about Chris as we get into this?
Oh man, I've been trying to keep this secret for years. I go back to my lair, the Batcave, and I come out to fight crime. Let's see. I mean, home right now, I live a 15-minute walk north from the USC main campus, so in South LA.
Okay.
Been living there for about 5 years now. I moved back to that neighborhood because I went to school at USC for architecture school. And so I was a little hesitant about moving back to a population that's mostly college students. And as you're walking around, you realize are also teenagers. And then you have to think back to all the times where you were in their shoes. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I know at that age? But yeah, it's been a really great experience, to be honest. I have an alumni discount to the USC gym, which is an Olympic level facility. So I get to go there every morning. Get to walk to the gym. That's cool.
Yeah.
We have Trader Joe's and Target right across the street. So I get to walk to Trader Joe's if I need to.
Nice.
And then, we have a lot of really good just restaurants that are around the area that aren't for the college demographic. They're kind of hidden holes in the wall, but they're places, they're haunts that me and my friends go to. And
originally from LA?
Originally from LA. From LA County, I should say. I was born in La Mirada, which is out in Whittier. So I still consider myself an LA baby.
All right.
My parents split when I was 2, and one of them took me down to Florida, which wasn't my choice. I would have stayed here if I had the choice. But I always had this spiritual connection to California. Just every time I came back, I just felt like home. And so the idea of going somewhere else was never, it was just never a thought that appealed to me.
Okay. Any general hobbies? What do you do for fun?
It's funny you said Legos. I really like Legos.
Okay.
Yeah, Legos are awesome. It's a great way to just disconnect, get off the internet. Just they're like puzzles, just focus on something that's tactile and handmade.
Okay.
Part of the intramural softball league, the architecture engineering softball league has been going for 3 decades now.
Okay.
But yeah, in terms of hobbies, I mean, I'm still I learn more things about myself every day, things I like and don't like, and I'm just signed up for this kind of open mic poetry class in Inglewood.
Nice.
So I'm just yeah, why not? I was doing improv a few months ago. Let's try this. I'm more curious than ever. I feel like I'm just now starting to appreciate, what are the things that I really like to do? How do I want to spend my time?
Yep.
So,
I love it. That's why you're so open to jumping into this. You're let's give it a go.
I was like, do I want to be a podcast host? I don't know. Let's find out. But similar question to you, Bryson. Who is Bryson Reaume? Where is home? I guess we could talk a little bit about the fires since we
definitely. Definitely California baby overall. Born in San Diego, moved up to Los Angeles area when I was young. Lived in kind of the Pasadena, Arcadia area. Moved from there up to the Central Coast. Right before high school. After high school, moved up to Humboldt with my brother who was going to Humboldt State. So I love the concept that I went from San Diego all the way up to Humboldt and then back down. Definitely consider myself from all over California. Now currently living in Sierra Madre, California, which I lived in a lot of different small towns over the years, and I always loved that small town vibe.
Yeah.
So when I realized I was going to be settling in LA for a bit, I was like, how can I get that small town feel? Sierra Madre definitely kind of ticks those boxes a little bit.
There you go.
Married a Canadian, convinced her to come out here, a couple small kids. Lane is 12, Emerson is 8. We're having a ton of fun. I love being here, living in Sierra Madre, working in Pasadena and around LA. It's just been fantastic. And hobbies, I used to have hobbies before I had kids. Now hobbies are whatever my kids are doing. But I used to love doing a little bit of Brazilian jiu-jitsu over the years, which I had a lot of fun with. Anything outdoors, skiing, we try and get a little bit of skiing in.
Yeah.
Recently trying to get into a lot more running, which is fun.
So, no, totally.
Gives you that quiet time that you need.
You just completed a huge marathon. What was it, a 5K or something?
Yeah. No, it was a marathon.
It was a marathon. Okay.
Don't cheat me, Chris.
Okay.
It was a full marathon. Last year that was great. That was my first marathon, the Long Beach Marathon in there.
Yeah.
All right, nuts and bolts now, a little bit more about you. How'd you get into the construction space and kind of what led you here to this room right now?
Oh, man, that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
So I graduated with my architecture degree in 2013, and it was somewhere in my thesis year, my last year of school, which was 5th year, is a 5-year architecture program. My thesis professor, who will remain unnamed, but he He knows who he is. He knows
Yeah.
I still love him. He came up to me one day and he said, "Christopher, I don't think architecture is for you."
Yeah.
And like, you know, in that moment, like I think most people would be like very disturbed to hear after a 5-year program, your thesis professor coming to you and saying
Yeah.
like architecture isn't like what you
What
really
you're cut
want.
out for.
Yeah, but it was actually very relieving to hear him like say that, because he was a very intuitive person and he was someone who was really good at noticing what you gravitated towards.
Okay.
And for him, he was just making the point that, and he told me to my face, he was like, you know, you like things like sociology, you like people, you like understanding them and figuring them out and all those other things.
Yeah.
And there's like a whole other side of this business called, you know, business development and communications and stuff like that. And you should like think about that. And like, maybe that's a journey you want to go down.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, sure. So I applied to a business development internship at Morphosis, and I had no clue what business development was or what communications was or anything like that. I thought they farmed all that stuff out to like New York.
Yeah.
And I got the job. I was like, there were like 182 applicants, and I was the one that they chose. I was like shocked, but
Yeah.
I've been doing that ever since. And I think I was actually realizing this over last summer because I was thinking about this question: how exactly did I find myself in this space? And I realized that it wasn't design that brought me to this industry. It was actually construction.
Okay.
Because when I was a teenager, every summer I would participate in these mission trips to an Indian reservation in South Dakota called Pine Ridge. And it was there we would camp out on the land for like a month, and we would actually build things. We would build houses. We would build handicapped ramps, schools, like shelters, baseball fields, like whatever the community needed. And I loved that. I loved being outside. I loved working with my hands. I loved like the community of it, like actually like figuring it out in the field, getting it done.
Yeah.
And that's what like led me to architecture. And now at this part of my career, I'm realizing like, oh, it's actually like the construction part of it that I've loved the most. And so this transition from design back to construction actually feels like a really natural one, and one I'm really excited about.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll say, you know, it is interesting starting in the construction space and then having kind of that natural love of construction you learned, and then just involving yourself in all the different organizations and different companies and things like that. Because I've always said since the first time I've met you, you seem to know everybody. You seem to be connected to everybody. Everybody seems to love you. So whatever you've been doing over the last couple of years has worked very well. And it's been, you know, a pleasure watching you kind of grow through those spaces. And each step you take, it seems, is kind of leading you towards that zone where you want to be. You know, so you love construction, you love people, and now you're kind of in that space doing a little bit of all of it.
Yeah, no, 100%. But what about you? Like, what was your like big kind of break into the industry?
You know, I've been in the industry forever. My father was a residential general contractor in the Arcadia, Pasadena area. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Right.
kitchens, bathrooms. You know, so I grew up on job sites. You know, I have the hammer scar to show it from when I was a little kid with the claw hammer, just literally playing around on the job sites. And then grew up, and then as I moved north, I started working in the trades. So I worked for a framer and a concrete sub, doing curbs and gutters and slabs for a lot of different houses and some commercial facilities and things like that. And then came back down, you know, again, this is a very abbreviated version, but then ended up back here in 2003 for a one-off adaptive reuse project with one of my father's old clients. And it was a residential client of his that wanted him to help on an adaptive reuse project. He was retired at the time, and he said, "Hey, come down. We're going to do this one project, and that's it. And you head back north." And I said, "Great." And so I came down. It was the Douglas Building lofts, and it was a complete disaster from start to finish. Nobody knew what they were doing. My father, again, residential contractor, kitchens and bathrooms, going to this 4-story, 50-unit, never been done before adaptive reuse in LA. I'm coming down from the trades, great architecture group, Rocky Rockefeller, but same thing. Rocky had never done one of these. The developer had never done one of these. So it was this group of people that jumped into the space, and really it was just learning as we went, but trying to learn and then dealing with LAFD and LAWP and a lot of people that didn't understand this new zoning and this new code. So it was just absolutely brutal. And I think we got like halfway through that project, and my father was like, I'm out. So he's like, good luck, finish it up, have fun. And through that, I had met great architecture groups. I created a good relationship with the developer. And from that point, they said, hey, let's do another one around the corner. I was young. I think I was 21. Yeah. I said, yeah, let's do it, man. It's like ignorance is bliss. Type thing. So I said, let's just jump in and get it done. And that was kind of the catalyst in the start of it. And from that point, it was a wild ride, learning a lot about business, learning a lot about the industry. And then I really found my love in business over construction at the end of the day, even though I'd come up in the trades. What I found was I really love setting up businesses, dealing with people. And that's kind of where I ended up going. So I started multiple firms past that. And it's just been a fun ride since then. And really, really, it's all about the people for me. So I've been really enjoying starting firms, bringing new people on, creating those relationships. I'll probably get into that in the future about what that means to me, but that's kind of what brought me to that point. And it's been fun.
It's kind of like one of our company values, people first.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's see. Let's get into some more kind of cheesy interview questions about who we are and what we do here.
I love cheesy interview questions.
I do like this one. What is one thing that people would not know about you?
Not know about me.
Not know about you. One of those things where it's not going to come up over beers. It's not going to come up at an industry event. It's one of those things that, unless you really specifically ask me this question, you would probably never figure this out.
Yeah. I would say it's probably the, and this is a very personal point, but it's kind of that, and it hasn't always been this way, but it's been getting back into the practice of it. I go to church like every Sunday.
Okay.
So It's like, it's not, for me, it's not ideological. It's not like I'm not trying to talk down anyone. I'm not trying to tell anyone how to live. It's just, this is just something that's like important to me.
Okay.
And I go and, I donate part of my income to the church. They have food banks that they set up for folks, shelters, like stuff like that. Yeah. They're very open. Everyone's welcome, no matter who you are, what you look like. Our priest is a lovely woman named Ann Sawyer. She's from Arizona. So, it's just a very open and kind of empathetic community. Okay. And I've been doing it for a while now. At one point, I was actually the janitor for my church. Okay. So I was like, I tried. I said, like, that's how I worked my way up. Yeah. But yeah, it's just something that is just like important to me, and it's just something that has kind of like kept me like grounded.
Nice. I love it. Yeah. I love the church communities. Everyone I've met in those communities, it's always, that seems the most impactful piece of it, is it's just such amazing communities, people supporting each other and things like that.
Yeah. What about you? Like, what's one super surprising thing?
Gosh, I don't have anything as impactful as yours. Mine are more like, I think one was, I joined the Army at a very young age. So I joined the Army when I was 17, right out of high school.
Talk more about that.
Yeah. It was just one of those moments where I, wasn't sure of my path or my options. It came down to also needing money for college and things like that. And I saw it as a great way to do that. Mm-hmm. And again, the recruiters are very persuasive. So they got me young, and I joined the Army. But I look back and I always say it was one of the best things that I ever did. It was this structure that I needed. It was just a really amazing experience for me overall. That's a big one. The second one is that I cut a hip hop album when I was 21 with my brother up in Humboldt. So
okay, nice.
That's floating around somewhere. I say I was the early Macklemore back in the day.
Oh my God.
We don't talk about that, but we're getting personal here. So,
oh man, I'm gonna have to go find this thing.
Yeah, I think my wife's the only one that has a copy of that anymore.
Can we play it at the rebrand party?
Yeah. All right. So then, let's get into some quick speed questions here, which I think is always kind of fun. Sure. So we'll both answer these. We'll just run through them. So dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Dogs. Same. Morning person or night owl?
Ooh. Night owl.
Night owl? Oh, yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I'm definitely a morning person, but it took 20 years to become a morning person. But yeah, definitely a morning person.
I am literally on that same path. Yeah. I'm trying to reform myself to become a morning person because I'm not.
Last book you read?
Oh, It's called Magic Mind by Jim Doty. He's a PhD neurosurgeon.
Okay.
And he started an institute dedicated to understanding how meditation, acts of compassion help rewire the brain and decrease your anxiety, but also improve your performance and your ability to just function and be a good, effective person in the world.
Nice.
So his institute is one of the few institutes that's actually received a donation from the Dalai Lama.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's in Stanford. But yeah, super legit guy, cool person. He came out of poverty. Now he's a world famous doctor. And just a really smart dude. And yeah, the books that he has written has really like changed my life.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Last book I read. Well, I listen to audiobooks when I'm doing hikes or runs. So that's where I get most of my reading in. Last one was random. It was Make Your Bed by, I think it's Colonel Patterson or something like that. It came from like a viral university commencement speech, and then he turned it into a book. So it was interesting.
I think I've heard about that.
Yeah, the general concept. He's a Navy SEAL. He used to be commander of all the West Coast Navy SEALs. And it was just a lessons learned in the SEALs and Special Forces, and interesting, about drive and commitment and hardships and things like that. So very, very easy, very short, a couple hours. So it was an easy one to get through a couple of walks. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Nice. Favorite sports team?
Tragically, it's the Miami Dolphins. I used to, when I grew up in Florida, I was just a really big sports fan as a kid, and I still have an emotional, an emotional draw to South Florida sports teams, and it can at times be very painful.
Does everybody say laces out when you say that? Whenever you mention the Miami Dolphins,
it's not even. We can't even joke about that.
Yeah.
It's just continuous. It's just continuous disappointment. Like it can't even be funny anymore. And every year we're just like, I can't believe we're still here.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
But when we win, like it'll make all the difference in the world. I'm sure. Before I die, I'm sure it's going to happen.
Yeah. All right.
What about you?
Favorite sport? I've just never gotten deep into sports, whether it's time or whatever it is. So my wife's Canadian. She's from Ottawa. So I kind of adopted the Ottawa Senators in terms of a hockey team.
Oh.
So they're diehard hockey fans. And actually my first hockey game was with them in Ottawa. And yeah, very enjoyable sport to watch. But then past that, my son is 12 now and randomly really into sports. I don't know where it comes from. But yeah, so it's like, all right, I guess we got to get into all these LA teams. So, he's really into the Rams and, watching the Lakers and things like that. So,
that was something else that you mentioned that I found surprising is you said like, you're actually like not that competitive. Like, you said he's very competitive, but you're like, whatever.
Yeah. And I think my wife's more competitive than I am. So maybe he gets it from them. But yeah, kids are funny because you can have 2-3 kids and their personalities are drastically different under the same environment and the same parenting. So that's such an interesting thing to see as kids grow up, that there's something else there besides what you're providing to them that they're just innately born with.
That is interesting.
And the outside environment impact, things like that. So.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But yeah, so I'll just claim some LA teams. I'm a bandwagoneer. Things like that.
That's a good, that's a good LA sports fan.
Yeah.
We're in the Super Bowl? Oh, yeah, totally. Exactly. Rams, yeah.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee, yeah. Same.
Went to architecture school.
Weirdest food you've ever tried?
Oh my God. Probably like, when I went to high school, I grew up in this predominantly Asian suburb called Roland Heights, which is 35 minutes east of here. And so I got to experience some very traditional Chinese food, including, chicken feet, which is like weird. I don't think I've ever done it again, but it's just like, I mean, teach their own.
Yeah, I would say I've had cow tongue once, which was horrible only because it tasted like tongue. It's like you're chewing on your own tongue. So it's brutal. And then there was some hipster place in downtown LA for a long time serving pig ears, which my dogs eat, but they were serving it up like something special.
Wow.
Wasn't great.
All right.
All right, last one here. If you could have dinner with anyone, living or dead, who would that person be?
Living or dead. That is a tough one. There's so many good people out there.
Yeah.
There's so many people.
Yeah.
I would say if I'm really, I think that, yeah, it's just popping to mind. Yuval Noah Harari,
Okay.
the guy who wrote *Sapiens* and *Homo
Yep.
Deus*, and this new book about technology and AI and how it's impacting our world.
Okay.
The guy's just a brilliant mind.
Yeah.
And he just thinks about things on like quantum computer levels and how they're all interrelated and interconnected and
Okay.
affecting the species. And I'm just like, every book that he writes, I'm like, wow,
Yep.
I'm sold. That's a really good argument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
What about you?
Gosh, that's a hard one. It's definitely one of those questions where you're like, it says a lot about you when you answer it. So you want to be like, Socrates or somebody like that.
Yeah.
But then I think about who would have crazy stories to tell over dinner or something like that. What popped into my head was Elvis.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Dinner with Elvis and just hear some wild stories from back in the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so many people. But yeah, that's the one that just immediately popped into my head.
My runner-up would probably be like Dave Chappelle or something.
Yeah,
like,
Dave Chappelle would be a great
like,
one.
Anyone who can make you laugh, I'm like, you got a lot to say.
Yeah,
let's
have
talk
some
to
good ones there. All right. Circling back a little bit more on the podcast, what do you think is something we're going to do that could potentially set this podcast apart from other podcasts going on in the industry?
Yeah. Well, I think, just providing people really great conversations is helpful. I mean, sometimes when people are, I do this all the time, you're on the go, you're listening to a podcast in your car. You're not necessarily always listening to every word that's being said, but there is something like soothing about sort of passively participating in the conversation.
Yep.
So if we could be good background noise to people, I'm okay with that. But bigger than that, there's so many. One of the things that I'm really excited about is that as someone who, as my job, I have to go to a lot of panel events, a lot of discussions, industry kind of forums and stuff like that. And sometimes, after doing this for like 4 or 5 years, the panels don't always kind of get into the meat and crux of the issues that we're dealing with in our industry, whether it's construction costs, like delivery methods, financing, the future of construction, how we're going to deliver housing at scale. And, it's hard. It's a public setting. It's like, you got 4 people up there, everyone's trying to get their take in, stuff like that. So to have a venue where we could talk about those issues and really like ask the follow-up question and really kind of unpack, what are the hurdles, the barriers to entry here? To me, that is what is uniquely exciting about this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And maybe some solutions will emerge too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I love the concept of the series, to your point of being able to do a deeper dive on specific subjects, right?
Yeah.
So you can't solve much in a 60-minute episode. At the end of the day, you can get some good high-level feedback or topics in, but really if you're going to get into something, it's going to take kind of multiple interviews and things to review. So I love this concept of creating a series based on something specific that we're trying to solve. We had this concept of everyone in LA knows, what's the situation with LADWP and why is it always such a difficult process to go through? It's like, hey, let's bring in 3 or 4 of the key players in that space and have a great conversation around that. And what can we all do to help to make things better? And also love the idea of having a positive spin for our podcast. Yeah. I think it's so easy to harp on California and LA and all the policymakers in a negative way. That's just the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
So how do we come at it from a different model of, hey, there's a lot of amazing people out there, heads down, trying to make a difference. So how can we talk to them, see what they're doing, what they're working on, and then how can we help them make a difference? How can we publicize what they're working on and get people behind it in some fashion? That would be a fun thing to do with this podcast, is to kind of use it in a more positive manner of, hey, there's a lot of great things happening here. Let's not just focus on, everything's horrible. So at the end of the day.
I agree. I mean, I just wrote down and, we're talking about in the beginning, like how I learn through conversation, and I get ideas just from listening to others.
Yep.
But, in terms of people we are looking to invite, and realizing it's really people that inspire us or doing something inspiring. Because that's how you uplift people. That's how you motivate them to change. Like, look at this person. They're really changing the world over here,
I know you love the Kardashians. So
I have a lot of respect for that. I actually have a lot of respect for them.
All right, so to kind of wrap it up, maybe we can end on some teasers. I feel like that's kind of what you do. You gotta end on some type of cliffhanger to bring people back here. So
that's a good point.
I'm trying to think, do we have any special guests lined up? Is there any big people out there that we are thinking we're going to be bringing in here for these first episodes? Where's our heads at with who's coming in here in the next couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should really just try to invite like the people that we know and trust and have them inform us on like, what they're working on and what they're doing. And we just know so many people. So I just think we just do it organically and honestly and like see where we wind up. But yeah, I mean, in terms of cliffhangers, next episodes, I was thinking like, do we need like a closing question? Like, what are 3 books that you read? Like, what is your favorite Instagram channel? Yeah. As someone who's not on Instagram, I wouldn't know about it. Yeah. So maybe it could be educational for me too.
Yeah, definitely.
What about you?
I mean, I think, like I said early on, we have a lot of amazing contacts. We've already reached out to a lot of them. So I'm excited about the people that we're going to bring through here. So major architecture firms, major GCs in the space, local supervisors. We've already floated the idea of getting Karen Bass on here in some way, which I think is a reality as we flesh things out and get things going. So really excited to have just really cool people in here and having great conversations with everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So, I think to follow up here, this is new. We don't really know what we're doing. We're jumping into the space. We're having fun with it. We do have a YouTube channel, I believe.
We are building out
a YouTube channel, an Instagram channel. Do we have TikTok? Is that even legal anymore?
I don't know. We should ask someone. Someone must know. Maybe a lawyer.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we have all those. Most likely there'll probably be links on the page after this is published. But we would love to have any and everyone involved here as we grow this thing, and if people are listening, if you have ideas for us in terms of who we can talk to, I would urge all of our listeners and people that are watching this to email us, send us ideas for episodes, series. We really want this to be a collaborative community effort at the end of the day. So we don't want to operate in a silo. Hopefully people will comment and tell us, hey, do this, do that. That last episode was horrible. Honesty is best. So with that being said, we're super excited to kick this thing off. Chris, any final closing comments for people?
Just excited for the future. Yeah, let's have some fun.
All right, I like it. Well, this is Bryson and Chris from A to Built. So thank you for tuning in and listening, and hopefully we have some amazing production coming your way.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
All right.